Hi everyone! In this video, we will learn how the disc brakes on your motorcycle work. Disc brakes themselves are used on almost every motorcycle manufactured today. The reason is, disc brakes are very effective and provide a good braking experience by only pressing the brake lever with a small force. So, how can disc brakes provide effective braking even with a little pressure? There are two factors that make this possible. First, the direction of friction, and second, the brake power mechanism that is able to multiply the input applied to the brake lever. Let's discuss them one by one. The brake system works by stopping the rotation of the wheel through friction between the dynamic components connected to the wheel and the static components connected to the motorcycle chassis. In disc brakes, the direction of friction clamps each other so that when friction occurs, the pressure from a pair of brake pads becomes stronger. How do you move the brake pads so that they can clamp the brake disc? For this matter, we need a brake drive mechanism. In addition to functioning to move the brake pads, this mechanism can also multiply the power we apply to the brake lever. This is why disc brakes feel light when used. This mechanism uses Pascal's law, which is used in hydraulic devices to multiply power. To make it easier to understand Pascal's law, consider the following illustration. In a vessel, there are two cylinders with different diameters. When we push the input piston with a certain force, the piston will clamp and press the fluid in the cylinder with a certain pressure. According to Pascal's law, the input pressure is the same as the output pressure. This means that the output piston will be pushed with the same pressure as the input pressure. However, because the diameter of the output piston is larger, the power produced is also doubled. Now, let's go back to the disc brakes. Near the brake lever, there is a box component called the reservoir and the input cylinder. The reservoir functions to store brake fluid, while in the input cylinder there is a piston that functions to press the brake fluid. Underneath, there is a brake caliper with a piston that has a much larger diameter than the input piston. These two components are connected by a high-pressure hose. When we press the brake lever, the input piston will move and push the brake fluid. This brake fluid then pushes the piston in the caliper so that the brake pads can clamp the brake disc and braking occurs. Actually, the way disc brakes work is quite simple. However, some may still be confused about why the brake pads can clamp the brake disc even though the piston is only on one side. This is due to the configuration of the brake caliper, which can move left and right. This caliper is indeed attached to the chassis, but can still move slightly, so that only one side of the piston produces the movement to clamp the brake disc. This configuration is known as a floating caliper, and this is the most commonly used on motorcycles. In addition to the floating configuration, there is also a two-piston configuration. This configuration has two pairs of pistons on the left and right sides of the caliper, so the caliper does not need to shift. In this configuration, a pair of pistons will move as brake pad clamps. For performance, the two-piston caliper is indeed stronger because it uses more output pistons, so the total area of the output cylinder is larger. This makes the power that can be multiplied greater. However, this type of two-piston caliper takes up space, so it is rarely used on small vehicles. That's an explanation of disc brakes on motorbikes. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel so you get other knowledge.